In 2006, BMW built a car with a 12-cylinder engine that made a proper V12 noise. It could hit 143 miles an hour, and the only thing that came out of the exhaust was water. Not low emissions, not carbon neutral because we're paying to plant more trees. Water, steam, the stuff that's in your kettle. They built 100 of them, they called it the Hydrogen 7, and rather than sell them, they handed them out to politicians, to executives, to actors, because the entire point was to be seen. This was not a hush-hush science project hidden in a basement. BMW wanted this to be known. And then a couple of years later, BMW quietly wound down the whole thing and went off to build electric cars like everyone else. Odd part of them shutting it all down was that if this was just one weird BMW experiment, fine. BMW occasionally does weird things. Mazda had a hydrogen engine running in the 90s. BMW had a hydrogen 5 Series driving around in 1979. Mercedes was messing with hydrogen vans in the 70s. This technology has been sitting in the corner of the room for half a century. Working, demonstrated, driven by journalists, but it's being politely ignored. So the obvious question is, who or what exactly killed it? Let me explain why hydrogen combustion is such a seductive idea in the first place. And I'm going to do it without a single number. Because the numbers are not the interesting part. Think about what an electric car actually asks of a car company. It asks you to throw away everything. The engine, the gearbox, the exhaust, the fuel system, the factory that makes the engine, the other factory that makes the parts for the engine, the engineer whose entire 30-year career is the specific art of engine tolerances, the supply chain, the dealership service bay, the mechanic down the road who's been fixing pistons since he was 9, and has very strong opinions about it, amongst other things. All of that, gone. Everyone starts again from zero.
Gone. Reduced to atoms.
Except for the mechanic down the road, who probably can't start again at all. A hydrogen combustion engine asks you to do just one thing. Change the fuel. That's it. Same block, same pistons, same crankshaft, same everything. You're functionally feeding your existing engine a different sandwich. And that's why every single serious car maker had one. And I want to stress this because it undercuts the whole suppression story before we even get going, because this was never fringe. This was mainstream engineering at the biggest companies in the world, running for decades. BMW ran a hydrogen program for something like 30 straight years. Not a skunkworks program. This was a fully funded, staffed, publicized program with actual cars to show for it. Mazda put hydrogen through a rotary engine, which is one of my favorite bits of engineering trivia, because of course Mazda took a rotary known to blow up if you looked at it the wrong way and went, you know what this engine needs? This needs blasty boom boom gas.
Coward. We have a new world to conquer.
But jokes aside, this kind of made sense too. Hydrogen's problem inside an engine is that it's extremely keen to ignite, way keener than petrol, so it has a habit of lighting up early in the intake before you've asked it to, which is bad and loud and quite expensive when it does happen. A rotary engine happens to keep its intake area and its combustion area in physically different parts of the housing, which means the hot bit and the please don't ignite yet bit are in completely different places. So the rotary, an engine famous for being thirsty, all burning, commercially doomed, and sounding absolutely fantastic, turns out to be almost accidentally perfect for the cleanest fuel in the universe. I would marry a rotary engine if I could. Mazda actually leased hydrogen rotaries to customers in Japan, so the technology worked. People were driving these cars around, and then it just didn't happen. Now, this is the point in the video where a certain kind of channel leans into the camera and tells you that a consortium of all companies bought up the patents in the 90s and locked them in a vault. I went looking for that. I'm gonna be straight with you, that's unfortunately or fortunately not what happened. But wait, stay with me. Because what did happen is a better story, personally. And it's genuinely a bit more depressing. And by the end of it, you'll understand something about how technology dies that's arguably a lot more useful than bad man did bad thing. There are 5 things that killed the hydrogen engine. And not one of them is a man in a vault. So let's go. Thing 1. Hydrogen is the smallest atom there is. It's the smallest thing that exists in a way that matters to a plumber, which sounds great until you try to hold it. It leaks through metal, not through gaps in the metal, through the metal. It works its way into the steel and makes it brittle, so your tank ends up slowly turning into a worse tank just by having hydrogen in it. And it's so undense as a gas that to carry a useful amount, you have two options, and both of them are quite unpleasant. Option 1 is to squeeze it to an absolutely deranged pressure, which means a tank that's thick, heavy, expensive, and shaped like a scuba cylinder, meaning it does not fit into a flat rectangular space that cars are actually designed around. And option 2, BMW's choice, is to chill it into a liquid, which requires temperatures colder than most of deep space. So the Hydrogen 7 had essentially the world's most expensive thermos in the boot. And a thermos, however good, eventually loses. The hydrogen slowly warms, slowly boils, and the car has to vent it or burst. And that's the crux of the issue because it defines the next 40 years. The engine was fine. The engine was honestly never the issue. The lunchbox was the issue. Thing 2, nowhere to fill it up. Classic chicken and egg story, except in this version, both the chicken and the egg cost about $1 billion, and neither one is willing to go first. Nobody builds hydrogen stations because there are no hydrogen cars to use them, and nobody buys hydrogen cars because there's nowhere to fill it up. And everyone involved stands around in a circle, arms folded, waiting for somebody else to be brave with $1 billion. Petrol didn't have this problem because petrol got a 100-year head start and built its network back when nobody was checking the return on investment. Thing 3, it wasn't quite as clean as the pitch. Small honesty break, and this matters. I said water comes out of the tailpipe, which is true. That's entirely true. Hydrogen has no carbon in it, so there is no CO2. That part is real and it's the whole point. But you're not burning hydrogen in a jar of pure oxygen. You're burning it in air. And air is mostly nitrogen. And when you burn anything hot enough, nitrogen in the air stops minding its own business and starts forming nitrogen oxides, NOx, the smog stuff. Hydrogen burns extremely hot, so a hydrogen engine runs hard and it also makes NOx. This is solvable. You run it lean, you manage the temperature, you fit the same kind of after treatment diesels use. It's simple engineering, honestly, not really physics. But it meant that in every internal meeting, when someone said zero emissions, someone else got to say, well, technically, and that's how a program loses its budget, not to a villain, to a caveat. Thing 4, and this is the real one. The industry backed the other hydrogen. Here's the twist, and it's a thing that nobody gets right. The car companies did not abandon hydrogen. In theory, they actually abandoned hydrogen combustion specifically. Because there is a second way to use hydrogen and it doesn't involve an engine at all. It's called a fuel cell. No pistons, no explosions, no noise. You feed hydrogen in one side, oxygen in the other, and instead of a bang, you get electricity directly, which ends up driving an electric motor. And on paper, it wins. It's more efficient than burning the stuff. It's silent, there is no NOx, there is no flame. It also has no moving parts to speak of. And critically, it looks like the future and the engine keeps looking like the past. So through the 90s and the 2000s, the hydrogen money ended up going there. Toyota built the Mirai, Honda built the Clarity. Governments funded fuel cell roadmaps, conferences happened. And hydrogen became the awkward cousin, technically part of the family, but invited to nothing. So the engine wasn't killed per se, it was defunded, which inside a large company means the same. But it happens in a meeting room over a slide deck at 4 in the afternoon, and nobody has made a documentary about a slide deck. Thing 5. Petrol was cheap and nobody was making anyone stop. This is where the all part of the story is genuinely true, just not in a fun way. Through the 90s and the 2000s, there was no serious price on carbon. Petrol was cheap, abundant, and already in every town on earth. Under those conditions, what's the rational move for a car company? Keep building the thing that already sells. You don't need a conspiracy to explain that, you just need a quarterly earnings call. So, the patents, because I know that's what you came for, and the patent thing isn't nothing. It's just not a wall. Here's what actually happens with any young technology. Dozens of companies filed overlapping patents on the fundamentals: storage materials, tank architecture, injection systems, safety valves. Not to hide them, to have chips at the table when licensing negotiations eventually start. It's positioning, not really a burial. The result is what people in the industry called a patent thicket, not a vault, more of a hedge maze. And for a startup, the practical effect is depressingly similar. You go to build your hydrogen storage system and you discover that 11 different companies each own one small necessary piece of it. Several of them have no interest in your market. 2 of them have been absorbed into other companies twice over, and none of them will move first. Nobody buried the technology, everyone just planted a flag on a small piece of it and then went home for 2 decades. Okay, 2026, right now, as you're watching this. Hydrogen combustion is actually back. And not as a curiosity or a concept car at a motor show, Cummins is scaling hydrogen engines for heavy trucks. Ford's running pilot fleets of hydrogen combustion powertrains in commercial vehicles. Toyota has been racing a hydrogen Corolla in Japan's Endurance series since 2021, publicly, deliberately, at speed, in front of crowds, using motorsport the way manufacturers have always used it, as an engineering lab with an audience. So what changed? 2 things, and neither of them is a patent expiring. 1. We finally worked out what it's actually for. Hydrogen combustion was never going to beat a battery in a commuter hatchback. Batteries and motors won that fight fairly on merit. Cheap electricity, plugs in your house, silent and quite simple. But now go and put a battery in a long-haul truck or a container ship or a mining excavator or a tractor that runs 20 hours a day in a field 40 miles from anything. That battery gets enormous and heavy, and every kilogram of battery is a kilogram of cargo you're not carrying, and it needs hours to charge on a vehicle whose entire economic purpose is to not stop. That's the gap, and hydrogen combustion is genuinely good at exactly that, and mediocre at nearly everything else. It took the industry 30 years to say that out loud. 2. The regulations, they finally showed up. Carbon rules, emission targets with real deadlines and real penalties attached to them. Fleet operators who now have to answer for the numbers. The thing that was missing in 1995, a reason to care about these things, it now exists. Which is, when you think about it, the entire story of this video in one sentence. The technology was never really waiting for a breakthrough. It was just waiting on a deadline. And then there's ammonia. And I need to tell you about this because it's the most elegant sidestep of a problem I've ever seen in ages. Remember thing 1, the tank? Hydrogen's impossible to store. It leaks through metals, it needs absurd pressure or absurd cold. Okay, so take your hydrogen, pour some nitrogen onto it, and what you get is ammonia. And ammonia is a liquid at same temperatures. This is an ordinary tank, but the actual clever part, it's not the chemistry, it's the logistics. We already make ammonia enormously, globally. Millions of tons of it, because every year that's how we make fertilizer, which is to say that's how we feed most of the planet. There are already ships that carry it, boats that handle it, pipelines, tanks, safety procedures, trained people, regulations. All of this exists. So the infra argument, the chicken and egg that strangled hydrogen for 50 years, partly evaporates. The network isn't hypothetical anymore, it's been running for a century, just for a different reason. Toyota Industries has built an engine that runs on ammonia as its only fuel, with no CO2 out the back. And they've started joint development to put it into generators, with proof of concept trials targeted for 2027. Toyota is also working on ammonia combustion with GSE in China. So is it solved? No, absolutely not, and I don't want to oversell it. Ammonia burns slowly and reluctantly, and it's about as enthusiastic about igniting as hydrogen is unenthusiastic about staying in a tank. It's toxic, in a way petrol isn't, and getting clean combustion out of it without producing a load of nitrogen compounds you really don't want is extremely hard chemistry. But it sidesteps the tank problem completely. And the tank problem is the one that's been quietly strangling this entire technology since before I was born. So here's where I've landed. Nobody buried the hydrogen engine, and I know that's less satisfying. A vault is a great story. A vault has a door can be opened, and if there's a door, then somewhere out there is a person who could open it. What actually happened is that a working technology sat in plain sight for half a century while the world just declined to pick it up. Not out of malice, but rather out of a leaky tank, out of cheap petrol, out of a chicken and egg nobody wanted to break. And that's the actual lesson. And it's worse than a conspiracy. Because a technology doesn't need enemies to fail. It just needs everyone to have something slightly more urgent, that specific quarter. The engineering was never the bottleneck. It was ready in 1990. It's ready in 2006. It's ready right now. The only thing that ever changed is whether anyone had a reason to care. And in 2026, it looks like somebody finally does.